So hello, my name's Rob and this is Cattle Rabbit Scale Model Studios, and in this video, as you can see, I've got a ton of bits in front of me. This is a Space Marine Company Hero set that I recently unboxed, and with the help of some extra Dark Angel goodness, I'm going to see if I can turn this box of Marines into something a bit more fitting for the First Legion. Let's get started. So Space Marine Company Heroes, it's a fantastic box. If you haven't seen my unboxing video, it's really cool kit, really good value. I'll leave it in the pinned comments below, check that out afterwards. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. There is so much to go through in this video, so let's just really crack on with it. The first thing you are always going to need when kit bashing is bits. Here you can see I've got this little Finecast Dark Angels Company Ancient. I'm glad I picked him up when I did, because I don't think he's part of the codex anymore. I am actually doing a voice recording about 4 days before the new book comes out, so we'll see, but lucky find. And I also managed to get hold of a Raven Wing upgrade sprue, chock full of goodness. Can't wait to bust out some of these bits. It's so much detail, all the little iconography, especially like it's really cool. Then I've got my old faithful, the Dark Angels Company Veterans. This is my favourite, I'm going to say, upgrade sprue for the Dark Angels. It's great. It's just got everything. It's really good value. If you're a Dark Angels player and you want to kit bash, get yourself one of these. I've got some of the other upgrade sprues as well, and I've also got this little tray of bits of just junk that I've kept. So let's see what we can do with them. So the Company Ancient. Now, this was an ordeal. I've never worked with joining Finecast and plastic together. I had no idea how this was going to go, but the plan was to kind of remove the banner and replace it with the Finecast one. I knew I was going to have to do some cutting away, and I knew that Finecast is quite a soft material to work with. So what I decided to do was not remove the banner for the minute and just try and work on the Finecast, the Ancient. So using some clippers and a hobby knife, I really took my time here. It was mostly knife work. Be careful when doing stuff like this. A slit, this compound is so soft. The amount of times my knife kind of just flipped through, you could cause yourself a nasty. So be really careful when working with Finecast. But I did just go around the model. I cut out wedges of chunks and just took my time. I did manage to save the head, which I was pretty chuffed about, as at one point I was looking like I didn't. However, I did kind of chip a little bit off, which is a little bit unfortunate here. Not the end of the world, as it was quite a clean snap. I think this bit was attached to his gun holster, and as I cut it away, it kind of just pinged out. I don't think it was necessarily my fault, it's just a brittle substance. Then I had to be really careful removing the arm at the back here. Once again, you can take off, but you can't put back on. And I've only got one of these, so I've only really got one opportunity to do this. But I took my time. I trimmed everything off with a knife after removing as much down as I could with a clipper. I did glue on the little piece that I chipped off, and I just painted over some liquid green stuff just to toughen it up a little bit. And do you know what? I was pretty happy, but this was a long process. The removal of this banner from this guy and trimming it up was a real good couple of hours. I also spent quite a long time removing all the tags and things like that from the resin. So the plan is now to attach this Finecast piece to the handle. Now, what I decided not to do was remove the banner once again, as if I did mess this up, at least I've still got a banner and I can always add things. But what I did here, using these squares on my hobby mat, I made sure that the banner post was in line, and I cut straight down using the squares as a guide. So there you go, just so you know, hobby squares on your hobby mat, they are useful for something. After I trimmed everything off, it was time to make a hole. Now, once again, this was a struggle. I'm pretty confident with a pin drill, especially these days. I do a lot of it. However, just go really slow and just keep checking. After a little while, I did kind of get it in quite far, as you can see. I would have liked it in a little bit further, It's only a little hole. Google that on your work computer, Rob's little hole. But I ultimately decided that I could make this work, and I was feeling quite confident at this point, so I did just nip off the banner. What I was saying to myself is that I could pin this back together if I, you know, messed it up. When I do cut plastic, like you can see here, I always file it flat, and then to pin, what I do is I get a hobby knife, I get a really sharp one, I push it into the middle of where I want my drill to go, I twist it a couple of times, and then what I do is I get my hobby drill, and I just, with no pressure, I'm letting the drill do all the work here, just really, really carefully let it drill all the way, you know, as far as I want it to go. Keep pulling it out and checking it, and eventually you'll get, once again, a nice size hole. Please don't Google that. I'm only joking, don't Google anything I say on your work computer. Now, at this point, I kind of realised that the post was a little bit thicker at the back, because Finecast is incredibly jank, unfortunately. I have reached out to people and spoken to them. As you can see here, I've re-drilled it and I've trimmed it a little bit higher. They've often said, go and look at the Finecast models yourself, but obviously if he's a mail order, you get what you're given, so I kind of had to make do. I kept the banner bit for later, that will probably go on a dreadnought, and to fix the two pieces together, all I do is I get some paper clip, I glue it into one side of the item. In this case, I started with the banner, as you can see here. And then all I do is I push the arm in. I always cut the pin too long. Now, the reason why I do that is, once again, erring on the side of caution. You can take off, but you can't put back on. So each time I'm just clipping away a little tiny bit of the paper clip. I'm checking to see if the fit is flush. Again, I'm just taking my time, and I think this is the biggest bit of advice I can give someone kit bashing. Take your time. Patience is a virtue here, and it'll be the difference between a model looking, you know, really good and just a model where stuff has been stuck onto it. So this bit nearly broke me. I nearly gave up a few times with it, but I'm glad I didn't. This is the only bit I'm actually going to convert on the Ancient, as I don't want to take the focus off of the banner. On to the next one though. So the captain. So what I've done here is I've made him as much as I can. And I knew in my head I really, really liked the Dark Angels picture that the heavy metal team had painted up, with the guy pointing with the power fist and the bald head. So I decided that was the build I was going to go for. I did keep his little captain shoulder pad on one side, as it's an opportunity to paint it that bone colour. I think the dark green and bone works so well together. I am going to be mucking about with his tabard, as we can give this guy a little bit more ornateness. I'm also going to adjust his backpack. Once again, we've seen me do this a lot of times before, so I'm not going to go over it too much, but I will kind of go through it. So I picked some bits out. Obviously, I am going to mess about with his little shield tilt plate thing. There's some really, really cool purity seal type things on the Ravenwing upgrades through, which I'm going to use. But to begin with, what I am going to do is focus on the tabard. Now, I did pick out a few little bits. There was a little book and this cool dagger with some keys. So what I start to do is something I try and do these days, which I do find quite difficult, because I'm not really big into the lore of Warhammer and stuff like that. I decided to go with the keys as opposed to the little book. I'm going to use tweezers here because curse my stumpy fingers, and he's going to be my keeper of the keys, and you'll see why in the next model that I go to, why he's got the keys. So I started to build this kind of like little order within my own little company, which I was really actually pleased with. And I think sometimes having those little narrative beats can really help give you ideas and theme your models. So that's something that I think I'm definitely going to try more in the future. Here you can see I've stuck the I don't actually know what these bits are. There's like a bunch of keys and a little dagger, but they do look really cool, and they're going the same way as the tabard, so the model's got a lovely sense of movement all in one direction, which is really, really cool. Next up is this little tilt plate. Same again, all I'm going to do is just with my clippers, I'm going to nip off the bits of, I guess, ribbon purity seal that were hanging from behind, and I'm actually going to just grab a dob of extra thin cement. And I'm going to put my new purity seal on them. All it is, it's a slightly longer purity seal. Once again, it's blowing in the same direction of the tabard, the cloak, the keys. So it's just going to kind of amplify that cool sense of movement that the model's going to have. I was actually really, really pleased with how this guy turned out. And then we're just going to take a look at the backpack. So same again, there is nothing different here that I haven't covered. I'll link the Stern Guard veteran video because you see me a lot of backpack editing and, you know, clipping off away. But all I do is I clip off the, I don't think it's an iron halo, little star type thing that they've got there. I smooth it over. There's 5 vents on the back. I line up my point with the middle vent. Once again, I push my knife in, I twist it, and then I go in with my pin drill. I then repeat the process on the part that I am also doing, in which case we've kind of got this cool little ornate watcher with wings and a scythe. Same again, just make sure it goes on straight. A little bit of paper clip, glue either side, pin it together. There we go. It's no different from how I did the banner. It's just that I'm, instead of 2 bits of posts, I'm doing a backpack and a little ornate thing. So that's it. That's the captain. That's all I'm going to do with him. He's got lots of cool little bits. I also found this really cool shoulder pad. 2 down, 3 to go. Okay, so next up we are going to take a look at the company champion. Now, I really, really like this one. It's probably my favourite out of the box, I think, so far, aside from the captain. And I've already picked out a few little bits, and I had an idea of what I wanted to do with this guy. Now, I did pick out a shoulder pad, which I had to change at a later date. I didn't realise that he's actually got almost like a Gravis size shoulder pad on one arm and a normal size one on the other. I am going to swap his head out for just a hooded, helmetless robe type one. See, that's very Dark Angels through and through. And I am going to change the blade on the sword from something a bit more fitting for a Dark Angels. He also does have this kind of cool little cross thing. I don't know what this is called, but thinking, well, he is a company champion. I keep calling him a Blade Guard company champion. He's not a Blade Guard champion, he's a Blade Master. Anyway, I found this really cool book on the Raven Wing, but it was a bit too big for what I wanted. And the kind of idea I had in my head when I saw this book was like my captain is like the keeper of the keys, and then this guy takes names down of all like the, you know, Unforgiven, and he carries it around with him. But I did find a slightly smaller one, which I was really kind of desperate to use. So what I decided to do was make a bit of a custom banner. So this was a really, really good exercise and something that I've actually never done before. It turned out really, really well. I'm really happy with it. But I think we're going to start with probably doing the swords first, as it's the easiest. Now, when it comes to swords, I always cut above the hand, below the hilt. Also, you never try and trim blades. It's an absolute nightmare. Always try and do the hilt if you can. Obviously, I need to be really careful when I'm trimming this, as I don't want to damage the hands. However, I would like to try and keep this extra sword blade if I could. They're always handy to have, especially when you're doing lots of kit bashing. So I've removed the sword blade on both of them. The actual sword arm that I'm using, I think it was from the Raven Wing upgrade sprue. Same again, I make a nice point. I use it as a pilot for my pin drill. I drill a little hole, and then vice versa. I get my paper clip, I can pop it in there, and I can just put a little bit of glue on both sides again, join them together, jobs are good. And the only thing you have to do with sword blades is just make sure that they're sitting straight and they're not kind of leaning over to one side. But that was the kind of the hardest part, I would have said. Let's do the backpack next. Now, again, I kind of knew what I wanted to do with this, but I weren't sure how I was going to do it. So this was a bit of a on-the-fly job, and sometimes you kind of have to just be a little bit with a bit of ingenuity. Now, I trimmed off this iconography here from both sides because I wanted to avoid cutting into the backpack by accident. Now here, this is an Infernus Marine. This is one of the 3 Marines that you get from your local Games Workshop. But what it has got is rounded sprues, which is perfect for what we need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a nice straight flat section off, and I will mount that into the backpack directly. So I'm not going to pin this, I'm actually going to mount the actual post, I guess, what the book's going to mount on directly into the backpack. So we'll get to that in a minute. But the first thing I need to do is kind of work out where my book's going to sit. Now I want it to be near the top because I'll probably put a little icon or a bit of heraldry on top of it just to dress it up. The first thing I'm going to do is just mark it with a knife, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut into it about halfway down. So just as you can see here, I've made a little mark on it, and then what I'm going to do with my hobby knife, I'm just going to take off just a few little thin layers, as what I can actually do is I can file this flat, and I need to file into about half of it, so I've got a nice flat section to mount my book, and I can do that with a file a bit easier. It's easier to file on something flat, something's curved, so that's the reason why I just take a few layers off to get the file going. So next up, what I need to do is I'm going to file the back of the book, just so it sits nice and flat against the, I guess, the post part. This is just so I get a really good adhesion. The book itself, obviously, it's not 180 degrees flat, it's slightly kind of curved. Here you can see I've stuck it on, I've got a really good contact point. And then same again, what I've done is I piloted into the middle, same again using the third vent in, which is only 5 vents on the back of the backpack. I started with a 1mm, and then I went over to a 3mm drill, and I really drilled into the backpack. I took my time with this, I let the drill do the work. If you do have to get bigger drills, I always use high-speed steel or steel drills, HSS, as I'll go through plastic really easily. And you can actually turn them the wrong way and it will still kind of almost act like a filing motion. And as you can see, I'm just going to mount the actual part of plastic directly into the backpack. So this is another alternative to kind of pinning, as the pin itself is part of the banner. So I just finish it off with a file, making sure there's no burrs or anything like that, and then using a bit of Tamiya extra thin cement. There you can see it's mounted in, and I think it looks pretty cool actually. I wasn't sure at first, I didn't know how this was going to look, but I am pretty happy with it. I do mount a little bit of iconography on the top of it, just at the end. However, for a custom banner, my first custom banner really, I'm really chuffed. I'm really happy with how this has turned out. I think it's looking great. You see, I might pop this one back on here. I end up using a little bit of Dark Angels heraldry, but now it's on to the next one. Okay, so next up is the Heavy Gunner. This is one of my favourites. It was one of my favourites to do from the Sternguard set. Love these big heavy bolters, really cool. Now I'm going to keep this guy fairly simple. He's got a smaller shoulder pad on his right arm, and on his left he takes the Gravis size pad, so he's got Dark Angels Gravis size shoulder pad attached. He does come with 2 head options, helmetless and helmeted. I would have gone with the helmeted, but I found this cool Raven Wing one that looks quite knightly, so I thought I would go with that. He does have this cool dangly thing that goes off of his belt. However, I think it's a little bit pointless using on this build, as the actual heavy bolter hides a lot of the lower half of him, so I'll probably just remove that and I'll keep that for later, as it's a lovely long Purity Seal. Then I do have this other Purity Seal thing. This is once again from the Raven Wing upgrade sprue, which I'll mount on the backpack, and we are going to dress up the heavy bolter with my, I guess, signature wings. I think it's ridiculousness crossed with the epicness of a Marine. Every Marine should be borderline ridiculous. So the first thing I am going to do, and I don't quite know why my camera's gone a little bit out of focus here, it does sort itself out in a sec. I'm just going to remove the little nubby pin that's on his tabard and smooth it over. That's it. That's all I had to do for that. That's, you know, anyone can kind of do that. Once again, just be careful when using a knife. Now, the little bit on top of his backpack I thought was quite cute. It looked like a little bullseye, seeing he's got a big heavy bolter. I thought it was quite fitting that I decided to keep it. But all I'm going to do is, using the little rivets on the, I guess, the circular bit here of the backpack, I'm going to push my hobby knife in and make a point. And then what I'm going to do is, much like the post on the company champion, I'm going to drill actually into the backpack. As you can see, it protrudes a little bit. So I'm just going to get my hobby drill. I'm going to start off with a small hole. I can drill slightly deeper if I need to, but I did work my way up to a 2mm drill, just taking my time. As you can see here, then all I'm going to do is, this pushes in really, really nicely. It's really snug. You can see here, I pushed it in, and it, you know, it's with no glue. It's not going anywhere, but I am going to secure it with a little bit of Tamiya extra thin. And then the gun, which to me is the main focus of this guy. It's the reason why he's got a big gun. You want to look at the big gun. Now, stupidly, I did fully assemble this. The blast shield is actually glued on here. I did use some cement as well, so it's actually got a really good bond. So the first thing I had to do was remove this little purity seal on the side. Just take your time with stuff like this if you have made this mistake. Small layers until your blade runs nice and smooth. As you can see, I've taken it off here. I probably would recommend, once again, doing this separately, but it's not the end of the world if you haven't kept it off. And then for this Dark Angels insignia, all I'm going to do is down the side of the sword blade with my knife, cut once, cut twice. You keep that little sword thing, that will be saved for later, as I'm a little great hoarder of bits at the moment. And then all I'm going to do is just the edges that I've cut. I'm going to get a file and I'm just going to slightly file them off. This is because I use the plastic as a guide, but there is a small little lip, which probably would have come off with some extra thin. You can see it here ever so slightly, but I do think just finishing it off will give a slightly better finish. And then it's just a case of attaching them either side of the gun. I'm going to push them right up against the bolter case and make sure they sit nice and flat. So there it is. I've just stuck it down with a bit of Tamiya. You don't need to do anything special here, as you've got a lot of plastic to bond against, so that works absolutely fine. There we go. That's the fancy heavy gunner. Now it's on to probably my least favourite guy of the box. So the second company veteran. This is the really bored looking guy with the robot arm that just hangs down. The posing just isn't for me. So I wanted to just kind of keep this a bit more, you know, in keeping. When a Marine looks bored, what do? You give him something to point at. And that's exactly what I'm going to do here. Using the Primaris Dark Angels upgrades through, he's going to get the nice pointing arm. Because if he's not just hanging around, he might as well be pointing at something. I am still going to keep the gun arm, as I think the up kind of gun is quite a heroic thing. Obviously he's stopping, he's pointing, he's ordering a charge. There's a cool Firstborn helmet here with a hood on. That's from the company veterans kit, which I will add on. And then he's got the cool shoulder pad that I didn't get to use on the company veteran. These are two normal size shoulder pads. And then I've just got this cool little bit of Dark Angels heraldry that will be added to the top of the shoulder pad, much like all the other pieces have been. As you can see, there he is. I haven't glued any of the stuff on that's around his belt, which I will. I think it looks quite good. He's got like all these little pouches and stuff like that where he keeps his chewing gum and his gobstoppers. But I think with this, just having him pointing, having the head facing the other way, here you can see some of the, you know, the bits that go around his belt, which I will leave off. Very, very cool. The head will be looking, you know, the same way as the hand, and it's quite heroic. It looks like he's ordering a charge or finding the next objective. But that's it, that's all 5. Now what we can do is we can cue the money shots. Really excited to show these guys off. So there they are. That is my company heroes. More Dark Angel-y, which is an actual word, than they should be. Really, really pleased with how these guys came out. For all the good things I said in the box unboxing video, it's a great kit. It really is. There's lots you can do with it. I had a guy saying that the company champion could be a really good proxy for something like an Ezekiel model, which now I can't unsee. Aside from the Finecast, which was just really, really hard to deal with, I really was close to kind of launching it across the room a few times. It's just patience. But that's it. I can appreciate this was a really long video. There was a lot to go over. Please do like this video if you enjoyed it. These take ages to do, and it would mean a great deal. But look, that's it from me in this one. Happy New Year to everyone. It's my first proper video. I'll see you all next time. God bless and take care.